Okay. Welcome back to Teck's Talking Shop. We're doing an after treatment video with a celebrity guest. Yeah. I am Kentucky Teck. Phil.
I'm the Heavy Wrench. My name is Phil. Should I do my intro now or?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been working on construction equipment for 20 plus years now. I've seen a lot of changes in after treatment and whatever else on construction and ag. So independent business owner now, left a dealership to go independent. So that's what I do now, run on a service truck. So go from there. Go ahead, Tone. You look like you're next.
Nuts and bolts with Tone. I am Tone. I work in the automotive and light truck field and some medium duty. I've been doing it for 16 years. I do everything from the repair to the R&R to the diagnostics. And I have seen a lot of changes as well.
All right. My name's Tyler. A lot of people call me TurboTyTy. I am a bus mechanic. In my career, I've worked on everything from school buses to luxury motor coaches and everything in between.
All right. Awesome.
Can I ask a question real quick, Tyler? Turbo, was there a movie like a Pixar film with a snail that they called Turbo or something?
Yeah.
Is that why they call you Turbo?
No.
Okay. I thought that I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be a guest here. I'm not supposed to. I'm sorry. I
know what you're talking about.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I mean, turbos do kind of look like a snail, which
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just, sorry.
Good
Boom, light bulb went off. And, I can't not call stuff out. So,
Light bulb.
Yeah, you guys just wait till the end. There's going to be way too much of this stuff going on.
Hey, man, I think this is the kind of stuff that people love. So,
the true raw aspect of our personalities.
Yeah.
And the little bit of knowledge that we have.
Yeah, little bit.
Yeah, so there's going to be like 30 seconds of actual educational stuff in this, and the rest is all just going to be banter. So, congratulations, you signed up for however long this is going to be of that.
It's going to be half Text talking shop and half Text talking shit.
Hey, if we hit a 50% ratio, like that would be great. I think it'll be like 30-70, 30% Text talking shop.
So what do we want to start talking about?
Let's see. So in my field, I'm working on a lot of newer stuff. I don't work on the old Series 60s, the early A-certs, stuff like that. I'm working
what
on
years? Tell the Kentucky, when you do that, tell us the years of the models that you're talking about. For the people that don't work on those, they don't know what years and what generation they are and things like that. I don't either.
Well, everything I'm working on.
Got all excited.
Are you okay? Somebody give him some CPR. Are you okay? He fell down.
These damn cords.
He was talking about numbers and just fell over.
Hey, I ain't no math magician, okay? But no, everything I'm working on is pretty well 2015 and newer. I still have some GHG 14 stuff. Most of the stuff I'm working on is GHG 17, so that's the latest emission standard moving forward. And a lot of what I do is with after treatment is electronic based, diagnosing NOx sensors, harnesses, after treatment control modules, updating modules, stuff like that. The older Series 60 stuff, your early 2000s, late 90s, stuff like that start to go towards EGR, towards DPF, stuff like that. I don't get to see it.
The construction side, I've seen it. I've seen the progression from, I mean, we're talking the 90s where we had nothing. You know, there was no emissions standards in the 90s, really. Then we hit the 2000s and we started to get a little bit of EGR. And on construction side, EGR was didn't really come into effect until IT4, which would have been like 2015. Because I think what happened was when the trucking side with the leader of it would be Tone, this side. Mm-hmm. You guys seen the emissions come in first, and then they dumped it on heavy truck and buses with Tyler, I believe. And then to round that all out, then it fell into construction. So we really only had like the DPF era, which I am like so thankful that we didn't have to deal with that for nearly as long as the truck side did, or the bus side did, or the automotive side did, because you guys had a solid few years of IT4 where it was just a particulate filter that was catching all the soot, and then you had to burn it out. We had like maybe 2 years of that before we hit final tier 4. So thank you to the trucking industry and the automotive industry for paving the way where they figured out it was like not the best system, and we'll just go to final tier 4. So there's really only a few model years of construction equipment, I believe. Somebody can correct me in the comments later if I'm wrong, but there was a short period of time for IT4. And the IT4 was really kind of phased in and phased out very quickly, and then went to final tier 4. And, that's, I know on the truck side, we had a truck that was IT4, and every 100,000 we were doing an EGR cooler and a turbo. And that was a ISX 15. It was an ISX 15 with, I think we had 550 horse on that one. I think it was a 550. I am from the Detroit area or Michigan, the Motor City type of deal. So everything that we have around here is generally the highest horsepower you can have. Like, that's just the way it is. We're allowed to plate our semis at 160,000 and roll down the road at 160,000 all day long, like without special permits, without any. It's just the way it is. Put the axles underneath of it and roll. But as far as the emission system goes, I think that was a very tough time frame, and I appreciate you guys going through it without me having to. So thank you to all the truck guys and all the automotive guys that had to deal with that. And I appreciate all that stuff you guys went through, and going to final tier 4, which happened as of maybe this past 7-8 years now. We've had final tier 4 in construction. So, and I like final tier 4 better than IT4 all day long. DEF is, my personal opinion, DEF is the answer to a lot of problems. It is a solution to a lot of problems, in my personal opinion. So
saving the world 1 gallon jug at a time.
Yeah, but I mean,
urea.
I mean, I guess we can talk about that. We can talk about that later. I got the points about DEF that I really do think that DEF could save us a lot of hassles.
Yeah.
So.
Tone, what kind of emissions did you see, or emission controls did you see whenever you were coming into the industry?
Well, when I came into the industry, we were already dealing with EGR. We have EVAP also. Trucks don't have EVAP, and that is a beast in its own. There as well. There's trapping the fuel vapors from the fuel tank and things like that. That has always been a problem. When I first started, I'm a smog tech, so I've been an emissions tester. So in California, you have to have a smog test every 2 years. If you live in very certain areas, you only have to do a 2-speed idle, where you just raise the engine to 2,000 RPMs. When I first started was right when they started doing dyno testing. So we would test cars on dynos. and we started testing for NOx emissions. That actually is a big reason why they started testing trucks and things like that, because they didn't realize that trucks were putting out NOx. But I've been dealing with EGR, with emissions. EGR has been a nightmare for a long time because gasoline fortunately paved the way for everything to come. They figured out that, because EGR used to flow through little bitty ports, and those ports would get clogged up with carbon, and then it wouldn't run right. So we had to figure out how to fix that and diagnose that. And, they just kept moving away from it and away from it. Emissions have come a long way in gasoline vehicles, as well as diesel. I mean, I think like in Fords, I think the 03 is when the 6-liter first came out. And because the 7.3 didn't have EGR. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall that having EGR.
You're spot on. I had an 01 and 02 was when they cheapened up the rods in the 7.3. And then I think 03, 04 is when the 6-liter came out ish, right? Shortly after that.
So, yeah.
I just had a first generation 6-liter last week with a bad fuel pump. But anyways, so that one had EGR. And so the EGR caused a lot of problems in the 6-liter, and you learned you had EGR cooler. And in the 6-liter, unfortunately, it's a QE system, and you're relying on the engine oil to run the vehicle. And engine oil, people don't take care of it. And then that's right there's just a rock rolling downhill. But yeah, we've been dealing with the EGR. PCV, it's always had PCV, but we don't test it. You don't really see it. And then moving on down the line, when we're talking about diesels, then you move into the 6.4. I don't work on a lot of Duramaxes. I don't have a lot of experience with Duramax. Cummins and
you are lucky.
And Power Stroke. Cummins and Power Stroke, mostly man. Power Stroke.
You're a lucky man. Stay away from that Isuzu.
Yeah. And then you move into the 6.4s, and they had the EGR coolers, different coolers, and then they had the best one was the particulate filter that used the fuel in the last 2 cylinders to shoot it downstream to burn it off, and that's a great system right there, because then that would just people wouldn't run it right, and then the crankcase would get filled with oil. It would wear the rockers out. Then the rocker arms would fall off. And then the 6.7 Power Stroke. That's when 6, things 4. Really started.
That was the
6.4.
That was the 6.4 tone that did it in the last 2 cylinders. And
yeah, they would just shoot fuel at a certain time, and it goes all the way back to like when vehicles first started having turbos, and in your instruction manual it would tell you don't just go drive your car and turn it off. Sit there, let it idle, let it cool off. And so it's kind of one of those things that people don't take care of it. And that's actually the biggest problem that I see with emissions, is that people don't drive their vehicles like they should. You have guys that drive trucks and they drive around town. They have these 6.7s and they just drive around town. Every time I see somebody with one, I'm like, you know what? If you just drive around town, go take it on the freeway once a week. Go just light it up. Let it go. Let it flow. Let it burn. Or it's going to cost you a lot of money and heartache later on.
Well, in the trucking industry, we actually have guys who will sit there and be like, well, the light came on the dash. It looked like a little wave, and there's like a little thermometer, so I just shut it off.
Same with the buses too.
Like, dude, it's regenning. Like, let it regen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually now something cool about that. With the like you're talking about letting them run. Now I'm going to speak on. I'm going to put my John Deere hat on real quick and talk about what they have. But if you hook up to a John Deere backhoe, excavator, dozer, doesn't matter. You can do a test that pulls a load profile. And I wish I had one. That I could show you. But it tells you, it's a chart with. It's basically a bar chart with how much time and how many at what RPM range and percentage of load on it. Mm-hmm. And it tells you exactly where they run that machine in the most of that chart. So like if you got a guy that's out there like a backhoe, right? A backhoe normally will dig for a while, and then if they're setting a pipe, they'll set the pipe. So then there's idle time. There'll be like 50% of its life or more is at an idle. And then it comes in with an EGR cooler, a plugged. or bad or whatever. But you can look at that, and that's another way that the manufacturers are going to kick back and saying, hey, you're not running this thing where you need to be running it. We're telling you need to be keeping it under this percentage of load and this to keep everything good. So I think they're going to start not warranting some of that stuff if it's caused by you not working your machine hard enough. That's what I foresee on the mission side.
I could see that happening because we have a lot of DPFs that come in plugged that you got to run face plug cleanings, multiple regions, SCR tests just to get them cleared out. Just because the guy likes his truck to be warm whenever he gets done making his delivery.
Yeah.
One thing to add about the 6.4, so the 6.4 had a crappy emission system, but the one good thing about the 6.4 is that when it needed a regen, it didn't have a little light. It would actually have a message that would come across the dash and it would say drive to clean exhaust. Everything else has a light and everybody goes, oh, it's a light, turn it off. But the 6.4 actually told you to drive it. Everything else doesn't tell you anything. It just has a light. And most people don't even know what that light is. They just, it means turn it off. So, anyways, I thought that was kind of funny.
I think the 6.7 Power Stroke does the same thing on the message center. It tells you.
It tells
you. It just says it real quick for a second, and then it goes away, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't do. Yeah,
right. The 6.4 will keep saying it. Just tells you.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it turns into a flamethrower.
But you know what's funny is when we talk about the 6.7. I said I want to correct myself because in the earlier models, the PCV, it didn't really do a whole lot, and you didn't really see any problems with it. But now the 6.7, they have a PCV box on the driver's side valve cover, and it's not in the maintenance manual or anything like that. That is a serviceable component, and they used to take them apart and replace the filter. Now you replace the whole box, and I'm gonna tell you why it's important. I had one come in that seemed like it had a bad turbo. It would smoke like a chimney. And I'm sitting here testing this thing till I'm blue in the face, and it had a bad PCV box. Took the box, and it's funny because you hold the box in your hand, and it weighs so much more than like a new one. It's full of oil, and then it just passes right through. And so, anyways, so if you have a 6.7, replace that. So I did a fuel contamination kit on one that was like had about 100,000 miles. And I already had everything off, and so I told him, hey, I would replace this box. He did it. So definitely replace that box. It definitely affects the 6.7.
All right. Another part to order. Thanks, Tone.
Hey, it's going to save you a lot of heartache. Hey, it's better than you going to replacing your turbo because you think it's passing oil.
Yeah, no doubt.
New one on it, it's still passing oil.
I'm gonna be like, dude, I'm still gonna do it, and then I'm gonna look at that box and be like, oh yeah, remember a year ago when I talked to Tone about this? Yeah, I should.
And you know what's funny is it's not in any manuals. It's not in any Identifix. It's not anywhere. I found it in like a Power Stroke forum, and that's how I found it.
Should I contact Power Stroke Engineering on this one and see what the heck's going on with it?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Tone, you and Jude need to do a video about that because all the people who are googling their Power Strokes, that's who they're going to find.
Mm-hmm.
That 6.7 is the best power. That is the best diesel light duty truck that you can get, man. That 6.7. You have one, right, Phil?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that thing is the best. If you drive a 6.7 Power Stroke, you will never want to drive anything else. That thing is so funny? Damn nice.
I went from a 2001 7.3 to a 2012 6.7.
Wow.
You want to talk about night and day. Oh my gosh. But yeah, the 2002s, we had a lot of performance people in our area where I'm at in Michigan here back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And they were like, I don't know if it's true or not, but I think that was there was a guy out of Michigan here that was putting propane on them first on the 7.3s. Because there was a couple trucks that had propane injection on 7.3s, and in this area, and he'd take it down and put it in a regular cab long box, 4-wheel drive, and he would be racing any car that was on the street and just gone in a 1-ton pickup, a work truck, rubber floors, 8-foot box. You know what I mean? Like going down, cruising Woodward, trying to pick up races and stuff, you know? But yeah, so we've had a lot of people pushing those vehicles, and the 2002s would bend rods when you start putting too much power to them.
Yeah.
Something happened in 02 with the 7.3, so I guess that's hearsay, so don't take it to the bank, but it's pretty reliable.
So Tyler, tell us about what you've seen on the buses.
Okay. Majority of buses, if I know you are aware of this in Sacramento, most of the buses there, I'm sure, are natural gas.
Yes.
And California's moved to natural gas because of the issues with emissions, and diesel because most of the lifespan of a transit bus is no more than 30, 40 miles an hour. And you're constantly plugging up EGR coolers and DPFs. So we've kind of moved away from diesel, but there are still some fleets out there running diesel. The fleet I was at before, where I'm at now, was all diesel pretty much. And we had a lot of problems with plugged up DPFs and EGR coolers, and we're constantly going through them. And another big issue we had is the cooling system on buses. You got your interior, your passenger heat, all that stuff is above the engine. And you also got 30 to 40 feet of coolant hose running from the back of the engine to the front to the driver's compartment. So you have a lot of room for air to get an air pocket in the system. So if you have the smallest little air pocket, the cooling system, and that runs through the cooler, you're going to crack that cooler almost instantly.
Jesus. Yeah,
so
that's got to be horrible.
Yeah, so they went away from a lot of diesel. They're still out there, though, and they still have that same problem. Cummins is getting to the point where they're trying to deny a warranty on a lot of stuff. Same issue. I mean, we moved to natural gas. You still have the issue with the cooling system. You get an air pocket in them. They did change the design of the EGR cooler from like a radiator fin core to like a solid tube core, and that's helped. But we still have those issues. As far as natural gas emissions in general, they do run basically like a gigantic catalytic converter. Mm-hmm. And really no problems with those. They're just as efficient as cars. They last forever until you have, you know, like I said, if you have an EGR cooler that is damaged and you run the shit out of it and you face that after treatment with coolant, you just damaged it. You killed it. So those are problems that we face for the most part. The over-the-road stuff, the bigger motor coaches and stuff is the same as over-the-road trucks. Same system, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, that I never even thought about that cooling system on a bus being that. That's got to be crazy to try to purge that heater core. Yeah. Because I mean, Deere and Deere especially recommends vacuum filling, and I know automotive. Tone and Kentucky Tech. I'm sure you guys are experiencing the same thing. The vacuum filling is one of the only ways you're going to guarantee that you get the air out. But 40 foot of 5/8 heater hose, Jesus.
That's a good point you brought up right there. That was actually something at the last fleet I was at, I recommended us doing. I recommended us installing CompuChecks on all the engines and just plugging in a vacuum filler or a pressure feeder, actually. So it would bottom feed pretty much.
Okay.
And that would eliminate most of the air pockets, but you know, you would still have people rush things and not do it right. And you kind of always get in the habit of cracking the highest point in the engine to get the air out. Yep. And some people would forget that and you would still have issues, but it has drastically cut down on
Cummins used to have a petcock on that intake, that big intake rectangle looking intake cooler, they call it, or it was almost like an intercooler that they ran on construction equipment. That was like, high above everything, and almost even with the radiator hose, and there's a little petcock up top that you just loosen up, and it would purge everything out. That was at Komatsu, particularly.
Well, on internationals now, they actually run their top radiator tube above the top of the radiator. So it's above everything. So they have a petcock on the highest point of it. You're supposed to crack whenever you're filling it.
Gotcha.
But it's funny that you mentioned the vacuum filler. Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned that. When I was the foreman at my old shop, I actually required all the guys that they had to buy a vacuum filler because I was, even with gas, and you talk about people being in a hurry, I would see so many people that would be in a hurry and then they'd be out back, with coolant dumping everywhere because they can't get it bled. And I'm like, man, just use a vacuum filler. Use a vacuum filler, put the cap on, and you can just go drive it. You don't have to sit there and let it run. It's filled. It's bled. So when you talk about a vacuum filler, Power Strokes actually come with, I think it's a bulletproof kit. We got a EGR kit one time, and it actually specifically said if you do not use a vacuum filler, then you will destroy the EGR cooler and will cause damage to the other components. Hybrids are the same way. So hybrids and diesels, their actual repair information says the only way that you should fill this is with a vacuum filler. And so
I am supportive of the vacuum filling, especially with emissions, because between the four of us here, we can all say that EGR coolers are a pain in the butt to do. Right? There is nothing fun, nothing gravy, nothing that makes you feel like you're not getting paid enough than doing an EGR cooler. Right? I mean, really, at the end of the day, when you go home after an EGR cooler job, especially on like if you have an EGR cooler failure on a backhoe or a bulldozer, now the front cowl comes down right where that EGR comes across. You have to use, literally, you have to have the smallest snap-on 13 millimeter wrench, the next one longer, the mid-length, and the long one, and the 90 and you have to have your angle wrench, and you have to have a hoop wrench. All of those just to get off the 6 bolts that hold together the EGR tube on a backhoe. And that's if you're lucky enough to be able to get the pry bar in there on the stubby to break that free. Okay? There's nothing fun about it. It's a horrible job to do. So, I mean, anytime I can prevent an EGR cooler failure with a customer or anybody, I feel like it's like my jar of anti-seize that I call "Don't screw over the next guy." Okay, being from Michigan, the rust, the whatever, just anti-seize that bolt on that belly pan underneath the machine where it's going to rust, and it just do that. Don't screw over the next guy, But the EGR coolers are horrible to do, and they fail more often than not. They are the gateway. They're the weakest link in the emission system right now.
We have
and they're death to the rest of the emission system. Yeah, when they're leaking.
Bingo.
We have a ISX 15 sitting behind the shop right now. The EGR cooler from Cummins is 7 weeks out.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
but like on that engine,
so backordered.
That EGR cooler's not that horrible to get at. That's a nice easy one. But in a bus.
You know what? They're actually not too bad. They're actually not too bad.
No. Is that the side that faces out?
Yeah.
Because on a bus they run perpendicular to the bus, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're sideways. So is that's
they're in line with the bus.
They're in line with the bus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never come across one that's been difficult.
Okay.
They've always been pretty accessible.
Cummins has been pretty good. I know Deere in their tractors or dozers, and I know automotive, I'm sure, has got to be.
I mean, the hardest thing about the ISX 15 EGR cooler is you got to drop the turbo off of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And as long as you're not. And speaking of ISX 15s, if you ever have to do that oil cooler reseal on the actual oil cooler that goes in the whole side of it.
Yeah, big old long thing.
Get the clean kit for everybody out there. I don't want to say anything, knock on wood. There's like this wives' tale out there that says there's a 50% failure rate of the engine after one of those has been done if you don't use the plugs to plug off the oil port, because the oil goes right from pump to filter and then cooler and then right into the main oil galley that goes right down to your center main bearing, and then it goes out from there. And if one little piece of dirt gets in there, them rods just grenade out the block within 30 miles. So if you make it 30 miles, you win. If you don't make it 30 miles, you lost big time.
Now, in the other vehicles, do you guys have, so in the 6-liter, when you have, and this must just be because it's I don't know if it's because it's a HUE system or not, but in the 6-liter, EGR cooler and oil cooler failures go hand in hand. One fails, the other one fails. So anytime you're doing like an EGR cooler, I always recommend an oil cooler because usually they're right with each other. Do you guys see that in other vehicles? We don't see it in the 6.4 and then moving on up to the 6.7. It was just a 6.0, so it must be a HUE system problem. But is that happening in big stuff or
no?
I think you're right.
Have been pretty solid as far as the only thing you really see in that is when you get oil in your coolant is when a failure is really a big.
Okay.
I think I think that is a HUE oil system issue.
Okay.
Because
part of that it's with the oil.
Part of that might be because of the heat that it's building.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it causes to fail. Yeah.
So you're building a crap ton of heat and you know, in that
seals to start failing.
Yeah. I was going to touch on a little bit of does anybody want to explain emissions, what they're looking for and how they're doing it, or do you care if I do, or what do you
go ahead?
Go for it, man.
We can talk about all the different industries and the emissions. Yeah, go ahead.
So I guess emissions in general, the way I've been explained and the way I've been done research and found out my own way, there's a fine line between when a diesel engine is running or an engine's running, you have two outputs, right? You have NOx and you have particulate matter. And that's what the EPA and everybody's kind of going after, right? Is they want to lower the NOx and lower the particulate matter, right? So at first, the first step was IT4, which all they cared about was, well, they wanted to trap the particulate matter because they were controlling the NOx with EGR and trapping the particulate matter. So it's on a teeter-totter, I guess, with a diesel engine that runs, right? So if you have low particulate matter, the teeter-totter goes up with NOx. And as you lower your NOx, your particulate matter goes up. So it's on that teeter-totter, and they're trying to find the perfect balance. So, and actually, when you're rolling coal and all that good stuff, and everybody likes to see that stuff, but you're creating very little NOx. So at the same time, you have to wonder, like, how am I going to say this? The environmentalist, right? Whether if there's an engine screaming down the racetrack, let's say, right, and he's rolling coal, and the environmentalist is like, "Ooh, that's bad," but then the next guy gets out there, and he's rolling down the same racetrack right next to him, and he's burning super, super clean. That environmentalist should be saying, "Oh my gosh, look at all that NOx coming out of there."
Yeah.
Because there's no smoke. So it's what you can see versus what you can't see. And now they're kind of going after them. Mm-hmm. And the way I've been explained to it is now that, EGR is a way to control NOx because you're actually going to try to increase your particulate matter levels to a certain extent. So a prime diesel engine that's running at perfect fuel to air ratio has no smoke, crap ton of NOx. Okay. So when you introduce EGR, you're introducing an inert gas, which is non-combustible, and you're just so now you're going to take that fuel air ratio and mess with it and make it have less NOx, but you have a potential for more particulate matter. So as you're running that engine hot, cold, that's what's actually plugging it up is the EGR. The more EGR you use, the more soot you get, which gives you EGR cooler failures. So it's literally a merry-go-round of EGR that's plugging itself up. So this is where the DEF comes in for me, is DEF is going to solve a lot of issues, because with our catalyst and with our stuff that we're using, we can run that engine, and people, manufacturers have it pinned out where they know that they can get these engines to run at the prime fuel air ratio at all RPM ranges now, that there is going to be no smoke, just a boatload of NOx coming out of it. And the way they're doing it with DEF is they're injecting the DEF, which so DEF is urea, which when it hits a certain temperature, the water burns off, which gives you your O2, and then your H2O, so it gets hydrogen and O2 when it evaporates, and then you're left with the urea that turns into ammonia. Boom. See, Kentucky Tech. He's so now you have the ammonia. So now you're using that ammonia to break apart the nitrogen and the oxygen. And that's where you're getting rid of your NOx at.
Yep.
So the real cure to this is filling them trucks with DEF and just letting them eat.
Yeah.
I am a proponent of that, because EGR is they came out with that stuff when I was born.
I think I sent you a message a while back asking you if you were familiar with the Doosan's Tier 4 final, the engine that they just came out with, where they eliminated the DPF. So they completely eliminated the DPF.
Yep.
And I'm not too familiar with the heavy equipment world, but apparently they eliminated the DPF and they're just running just SCR.
Now, I think Doosan's one of them companies I'm not really familiar with. I believe they run a Scania engine, which is European. The Europeans are doing a lot without DPFs now. JCB in particular, I know that they're getting away from a DPF because they're actually running that engine and proving that they can run that engine without particulate matter, and are clearing it up more with DEF, which is fine. But the problem is they want, in that same EPA regulations, I'm told, they're trying to keep it with now y'all are going to laugh. They want to keep it fluid neutral. Okay.
Gender neutral.
That's why,
juice.
Yes, fluid neutral engine juice. So we're not getting into rebuilding trannies here. Calm down, Kentucky Tech. But that's another issue that manufacturers are facing too, is because the customer is saying, well, what do you mean? Now I got to have this other fluid here? And they're like, well, yeah, but you're saving over, well, I can use my pickup, for instance, right? Let's say my pickups, I save 2.5 gallons of fuel per 5,000 miles. And in 5,000 miles, I add 2.5 gallons of DEF, which okay. So now I'm at a fluid neutral state still with that truck. I just traded gas for DEF, or diesel for DEF, right? So that's what they're still trying to do and work out. But that's another regulation that's kind of, and that's the problem, is when you have regulations put on like this, people scramble, right? Like emissions is a scramble. It's a race to the finish line, right? Like, and then you have companies out there like Volkswagen, right? Who, I mean, I don't know if we're going to get demonetized for this or not, but right? Like they kind of raced around it there a little bit. They're like, yeah, we're good. And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, no, you're not. But there's companies out there doing it. And I know Cummins and John Deere and everybody is pretty much relying on, what type of DEF pumps are you guys putting in? Delphi. right?
Yep.
Everybody runs Delphi pump. Everybody and Bosch and Bosch injectors, injection pumps.
Bosch makes all the injectors.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's getting to be there's a few companies out there that have it figured out, and these manufacturers like John Deere, Cummins,
Daimler,
Isuzu, Ford, Daimler, yeah, Fiat, whatever you want to call it, Fiat. All of them are going to these places like, hey, we need this answer. We will pay you for your technology. And, because it was a race to the finish. And these guys, high pressure common rail, when that came out, that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Emissions wise, right? Now we can really control injection. And I'm probably sounding like the biggest nerd in the whole world right now, but I enjoy this stuff. This is something that I truly enjoy is a discussion with intelligent people about
Hey, don't accuse me of that.
I don't want to be held liable for the intelligent part.
Mostly intelligent people.
It's funny that you mentioned that. That leads into the whole future of you're going to have guys that can be a diag tech and guys that just cannot, because we're dealing with a whole new world of really understanding how things work, and you have to be able to see like the whole picture. And so that makes a big difference in the future of our diagnosticians, and who can go down that road or not.
I don't want to say this without, I don't know if I say this or what the heck, don't matter. You're talking about separating the men from the boys.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
First string to second string. Like, hey, if you're not gonna, I've always said this. There's a few types of people that are that deal with emissions differently, right? There's the guy that's older that buries his head in the sand and says, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to work on it.
Well, okay. Retirement's coming up.
Now he has effectively taken himself and made himself invalid in the industry. Okay. Basically, because now there's going to be a certain point where all you have left is to deal with this. And then there's the guy that says, I don't like it. I'm smart enough to figure out what they want, and I'm gonna create a delete kit to get rid of it. Okay, because I don't like it, whatever it may be. But he's smart enough, and his intelligence level is up there. But he creates a thing to get rid of it, and that goes hand in hand with those two people, right? And then you have the third guy that's like, hey, I don't like it. But it's not going anywhere. I might as well do what we're doing here and embrace the fact that this is what my job is going to be in the future. And I either can learn about it and become successful with it, or I can be like that first guy I mentioned and bury my head in the sand. And next thing you know, I can't get a raise because I don't know what's going on with the engines anymore.
Well, our local dealership, their highest paid guy, he hardly ever turns a wrench anymore. He sits at the computer, they pull a truck into his bay, he hooks it up, he goes through all the diag, he does all that, then he hands that work order off to somebody else and they pull the next one in. That's what he does all day, every day. And I've tried to explain this to new guys who are leery about the computer. My dad drove a truck. He had a 3406. That's what I want to work on. That's the way mechanics should be.
Turn the screw, make smoke, runs good.
Yeah.
Right.
Those days are gone. I hate sitting at my toolbox every day and reading all the diagnostic trees. I hate going into PSL and just reading about fault codes. But at the end of the day, tomorrow, there's one less 3406 on the road. There's one less Series 60 on the road.
in California. So I don't know. I'm not in the heavy truck industry, but I do know that they are basically forcing all of the trucks to retrofit or retire. And so then you have no choice but to spend a ton of money and try to make your old truck work like it's new, which is going to fail it anyways. I mean, really, if you think about it, if you take something old and you try to add something new to it, it's going to force it to break. It's not going to last as long. So you're kind of foolish to do that. However, you're stuck in can you afford to go the route of getting rid of it, getting a new one, retrofitting it? But so they're forcing people to get rid of it. And then there's the other part of, you're talking about reading trouble trees and stuff. But the other part of it that really separates that third guy is the guy who can not only, because you get the trouble code, right? And we have a tree. Is that tree always right? Nope. You have to read outside the box, and you have to be able to try to read through the tree, but you also have to be able to see that bit it's not talking about and be able to understand that, wait a minute, something over here is telling me this isn't correct. Now I have to actually figure this out without a trouble tree. Yeah. That's what makes that third guy. That's what actually makes the fourth guy. The guy who can read the trouble tree and step outside of that and be able to figure that out. That's actually the hardest part of being a diagnostician is being able to go that route. And that can be very difficult and very taxing.
Or my personal favorite is whenever you go into PSL and you go through, because they have every single fault code listed with in-depth detail. The fault code you have that it says in Diagnostic Link to refer to PSL, it's not in PSL yet. They haven't updated PSL. So I had a truck in the shop for, I think it was a 3463 code. I don't remember for sure. It's not in the code is in PSL. The FMI is not. The fault mode indicator isn't. So it skipped from FMI 8 to FMI 20. I had FMI 10. So I read each one of the fault codes because there's 5 different FMIs there. I read each one, and then I went from there and started. I found it was the SCR outlet temperature sensor, and I found a ohm tree in one of them and started ohming out the sensors until I found the bad one.
And when you talk about that in NPR, when you talk about an NPR medium duty, we had one time where there is a temp sensor that's not even in the scan tool, and we had an IDSS, so we had an Isuzu scan tool, and that PID was not even in the scan tool. We had to find it through I don't know. We had to talk to somebody, and they told us about it, and then we had to go and find it, and then you were able to go into Mitchell on Demand and find the temp sensor and find out the testing procedure for it. But the PID was not even in the scan tool, which was crazy in itself right there.
Yeah. But talking about, he muted us.
That's all right. He needed to say something. He needed to say something bad about me. It's cool.
Hey, he better not be ordering sausage right now.
If he's ordering a pizza, he better order it. I'll give him my address. I'll text him my address.
Yeah. He's going to put pineapple on it.
No, we don't have Detroit pizza over here.
No. Don't put pineapple on pizza.
No.
I love pineapple.
That's because you live closest to Hawaii.
So
never been.
You live the closest, though, don't you?
No, I have no desire to go there, though.
Why not?
I don't know. It just doesn't. It's like one of the most not exciting place to go to for me.
Dude, it is. Right now, it is 13 degrees outside. Hawaii sounds pretty freaking nice, okay?
Southern California would be nice for you right now.
Feels
Phil.
like -2, okay? That's with the wind chill. So I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't mind having a nice cold drink and a pineapple, some fruity mango something, and I'm not gonna say I'm gonna take my shirt off, because that would be
nobody wants to see that.
That would be
nobody
weird.
wants to see that.
It
would be it would look like, you know what it would look like? It would look like the snow outside right now. There'd be so much just boom.
People want to see you with your shirt
I wear a
off
white
about
t-shirt. I wear a white t-shirt under every t-shirt. It's just poof. This kid ain't seen sun in years.
They want to see you with your shirt off about as much as they want to see me in a tutu.
I want to see that too.
I do too.
Yeah.
Sign me up. Sign me up.
Kentucky Tutu Tech.
They're playing with grannies.
Turbo Tutu.
Yeah.
Nuts and bolts of tutu.
You know,
I like it.
How do we segue this into?
But I guess you're right though of the declining things that are out there of old school technology, and then you also have the unknown, like Tone was just talking about, of unknown trouble codes. There's a lot out there that they don't know because the matrix of what they're building is still unknown. This technology is not proven yet.
Yeah.
Like, we are still proving technology every day. Every new truck or new piece of equipment or new car that rolls off the line is still trying to prove that it's going to meet those standards and those things. And there's just
with gasoline, now we're starting to deal with a whole new era. What's been going on for a little while with gasoline direct injection. And so that's messing up everything as well. They're starting like a whole brand new thing, and they're trying to go like a common rail diesel. And so we have these, 3,000-pound fuel injectors that are shooting fuel. And then we're having tons of carbon problems. And then, it's kind of like starting all over with everything. And then now they've figured out that like the newer GDI vehicles, now they have two different injectors. Now they have the injectors during normal operation. Injectors to wash the back of the intake valves, because the intake valves are carboning up real bad and causing all kinds of drivability. Like Volkswagen, a 30,000-mile Volkswagen, you're having to replace the intake manifold because it's carboned up the runner track. Whose house is that? It's carboning up the intake runner really bad, and the intake valves are carboning up so bad that the engines barely run at 30,000 miles.
Wow.
So there's crazy. That whole thing and you're talking about gasoline already runs with almost no emissions as it is. And they're trying to mess with the emissions and the fuel economy, and then putting little turbos on everything. And you just have all these new things that are, coming down the pipe in automotive.
I've heard in the past that like the EcoBoost that Ford's making.
Oh, that's awful.
It's basically they're building it almost like a race engine, where it's pushing its own limits of horsepower to cubic inches beyond what some race cars are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you expect to get longevity out of that? I was talking to my buddy who he drag races and whatever, right? He knows going into that he is pushing that engine to its limit, and he knows that I am paying this much money for only this much, right? I have other friends that pull tractors, which there was a huge pull this weekend, and they pull a super farm class, and they're getting out of I think it's 466 cubic inch diesel. They're getting close to 1650, 1700 horsepower.
Holy crap.
Out of I think it's 466 cubes is what they're allowed. I don't know the whole spec, but anyway, that's what they're putting out of these engines. Well, they understand that engine has a lifespan that went from it's going to be good for 10, 12, 14,000 hours to, hey, every 4 races, I got to change every 4 pulls, I got to change my oil. Because it could be, we got to look for things, and same with the drag racing industry, and with these new engines that we're trying to push really far for horsepower over cubic inches, doing the same thing with our, we were getting 550 horse out of a 15 liter a long time ago, but we were getting no longevity. Now ISXs are running 550 horsepower for millions of miles with I won't say no issues, but no catastrophic failures that you're just waiting for the hammer to drop, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Well, I mean, most of the issues you're running into are after treatment related.
yes, yep. And I know there was a bunch of people that were that guy that was smart enough to figure out how to delete a semi. They had that figured out for a while.
Yeah.
And they were deleting a bunch of trucks, over the road trucks, and that came crashing down.
And the other thing with the deleting is you have all these places where, like, from what I heard in Texas, in the state of Texas, it wasn't illegal to delete emission components, and the state didn't care, but the federal did. So then you had the federal government coming in and going after all these shops, truck owners, and then the shops are getting fines for every vehicle that they deleted the emissions, because in the state it's not illegal. So they were doing it on the books. And then the federal government was coming in and they're fining all these shops, going after all these truck owners. Now they're having to go and put it all back on. And it is expensive to put back on. I had a Dodge Cummins come in, a 6.7 Cummins. Guy was moving back to California. He said, my EGR cooler stuff's in the back. I need it put back on. Okay. Well, your head gasket's blown and you're missing your entire engine, your entire exhaust system. It was $16,000 for a head gasket to put his old EGR cooler back on. That wasn't even a new one. His old EGR cooler and his entire exhaust system. And it was like $8,000 just for the exhaust.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
I had an ISX, same thing, that had a delete kit put on it. And everything was deleted, and it actually threw a rod through both sides of the block, and I had to replace it. And I was working at the dealership, and we didn't work on many trucks, but I drew the short straw. And we got a reman right from Cummins, and I had to. It was crazy because I knew the EGR was deleted, right? We found that. And then swapping over components, everything was fine. And it actually had the after treatment on it. It had the DEF tank on it. Everything was final tier 4. Well, I got it out there, and all of a sudden it would run for a while. All of a sudden it'd throw a code for differential pressure in the catalyst. I'm like, what's this? So I would check it out, clear the code, and it would be fine for a while. Well, I don't know what happened, but the 2 tubes that go into the catalyst,
Mm-hmm.
between the 2 or whatever, they had one pinched off just ever so slightly.
So it had a reading.
Okay.
so
it was reading differential pressure, but finally I got down. I'm like, man, maybe it's that or something. Electrically, it's all working. Everything's working fine. I had to get it. Well, that was the other problem. I had to get a new ECM because the rod went through the ECM as well as the block.
Oh, because it's in the block. Because it's on the block.
So it's on. Yeah, it's on the side of the block. So the rod went right clear through the ECM, through everything. So I had nothing to start with. I had no programming, and they had it deleted, right? So finally, I'm like, I'm messing around with this truck. And it's a Kenworth and whatever. It doesn't matter. Finally, I take a mirror and my inspection camera, and I pull the exhaust off of the outlet, and I stick my camera in there, and I'm like, what is that? It goes in a long ways. It was hollow. They took it apart and they just gutted it. And I heard tell they were doing these kits for like 10 grand. You get rid of all your emissions for like 10 grand, right?
A shop I worked at, I never saw one hollowed out, but they were having trouble with max forces plugging up this was a weird independent fleet shop. The max force would plug up the DPS.
So you're saying you worked at a weird shop?
We'll talk about it later. Okay.
Okay. I was just making sure if you made it weird or
I had to swap trannies, pull heads.
Oh, pulled heads and swapping trannies. Ooh, boy.
But
did you swap them trannies from underneath or on top?
Well,
we don't even need to go there, but
you kind of gotta,
Okay, you work around it. I got you.
But
both sides.
Dude took a a masonry bit, like a 3/4 inch masonry bit that's like, 14 inches long, and drilled like 8 holes through the DPF so it wouldn't plug up no more. It was still regen and everything. And I was just like, if anybody ever drops this filter, like that's a $10,000 fine right there.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
But talking,
that's crazy. But it would still read differential pressure because enough of it was.
Mm-hmm. No check engine lights, nothing. That thing ran perfectly.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things. Like the guys that are getting around it, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough boat to be in because, like you said, that like Tom was saying that I think he spent 20 grand on that. At least 20 grand on that after the DPF and stuff because there was no core.
Yeah.
There was no nothing. And I had to put it all back to where it was working. And I got the truck back working again and it was good to go.
Yeah.
So
I was just about to transition it to Tyler and he walks away.
So I want to say one thing. So gasoline. So for a very long time, we didn't use EGR coolers. We had an EGR valve and that's it. Now the newer vehicles are starting to have EGR coolers. Even Priuses, even the hybrids have EGR coolers.
Yeah.
Seriously?
So that is something that is adding to the gasoline.
Now I have a question for you, being how you're the automotive representation in the group here. What do you consider a hybrid?
A hybrid is a vehicle that can operate on gas and electric. That's what a hybrid is. So like the Priuses were the first ones. And so they can run the gasoline engine to charge up the batteries, and then it can run, and then the transmission, the transaxle, generates power. And that's how you get. And I actually just took a class on that not that long ago, learning how all that works. And if you drive a hybrid on the freeway, or not on the freeway, but if you drive and you allow it to slow down and you're not slamming on the brakes and you're driving it, not like a old grandpa, right? But moderately. You're driving it moderately. You will almost hardly ever wear the brakes out because the vehicle would be doing most of the braking. And when you do that, you're also increasing the lifespan of the vehicle, the battery, everything else, because it is charging the battery properly. And it's just using that power to stop the vehicle. It's using that power to regenerate the battery. It's putting the battery storage back in, and all just from not driving up and stopping and driving up and stopping. And it's pretty interesting to learn about how all that works with the hybrids. Tyler, I was saying if you drive a hybrid moderately, then the vehicle actually stops itself most of the way. It puts the power back in the battery. It recharges the batteries more, provided you're not stopping and going and stopping and going.
You're talking about automotive hybrids right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so medium duty transit bus hybrids, engines always running. So you're getting, and they're coming 6.7s. So you're constantly plugging up DPFs, EGR coolers, because the engine's sitting at idle most of the time.
Question: is that engine? How are the buses hybrids working? Are they using DC or AC to drive the motors?
They're using AC and through a rectifier basically, and you're converting it
to DC. So they're DC motors. Okay, well, construction equipment has went the other way. They went to AC motors. So, like there was a wheel loader I did a thing on, video on, whatever, doesn't matter, but it's basically the machine is running a genset, a 3-phase 480 genset, and that goes down to your wheel motors, and that's what actually travels you forward, travels you backwards.
Oh, wow.
is AC 3-phase motors.
Okay.
Electric
I take that
motors.
back. I take that back. It's the other way around. You're DC and you're converting it to AC.
From
So you
on the
have,
buses.
yeah. So the
So
roof,
do you have a bunch of battery banks?
yeah. Yeah,
You have
it's
a bunch of
basically Toyota Prius batteries just stacked. I mean, the whole roof
Okay.
of the bus is pretty much the battery source.
What kind
Yeah.
of voltage are they running?
It's a good question. I don't know. It's been a while since I've even looked at them, but
What are the cables? Are they orange?
they're orange, yeah.
Okay. So they're what, like 250? Is it 250?
That's a lot.
You know
So
what?
basically, the color of the cable determines the voltage, because there's a orange cable, there's a red cable, and there's a blue cable. I'm not sure about the red and the blue. But they're a lower one. Orange means that it has the ability to stop your life. Essentially, that's what it means. It can kill you. The red and the blue, they're not going to kill you, but they're going to hurt you. And it's the different voltages. I can't remember because I've never dealt with the red and blue, but the color of the cable determines the amount of voltage that the vehicle produces and travels through.
The best way I can relate it to for you to understand better is I'm not sure if you've worked on the Chevy Suburban hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically that same system GM used with Allison, just bigger.
But I mean, that's a pretty good transition into what I wanted to talk about next, which is where do we see after treatment and emissions going in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
So I took a class. I was going to ask you guys about this, about the big trucks, because I would imagine it's going to go this way for a lot of them. But are you guys are your emission components in a box? I took an after treatment class, and they talked about like after treatment. What they did was it was an after treatment class, and it wasn't a Power Stroke Cummins or Duramax class. It was a after treatment because they all works basically the same. They have a little slightly different strategies, but for the most part, it's the same. And then they touched a little bit on heavy duty, and they were talking about in the heavy duty, and I can't recall if they're already using it or if it's going that way. Everything is in an emissions box. It all goes through this box, and you got the particulate filter and the SCR and all that stuff. Is that happening now?
That is actually Detroit. Detroit uses what they call a one box. You have one inlet, one outlet. It comes in. You have what I call a double barrel DPF. You have two DPFs side by side. It flows out of that. It flows down, and then it sprays in the DEF. It flows through your SCR and then out.
Okay. And that's kind of like on equipment wise. Basically, you can pull the after treatment system off. Yeah, the after treatment system is almost in a contained unit because they stack it above to adjust the valves on a wheel loader or a bulldozer or whatever. You got to pull the whole after treatment off to adjust the valves because it's on top of the engine. So like, it comes in its own frame cage that you pull the bolts right off and lift it up out of the way. So yeah, it does come kind of like in a one box application, but at the same time, like Kentucky Teck was saying, you have everything separate right there. You have your, like you said, explain it well, like your your decomp tube and everything. Your def lines have to go there. Everything goes there. So your def
now would that get replaced as one box? You couldn't replace the DPF or the SCR, could you?
It depends on what goes bad. If your SCR goes bad on a Detroit one box, you have to replace the entire box. You move all your sensors and all that stuff over to the new one, and you can even reuse your DPFs. But I mean, I don't know why you would. But if the SCR goes bad, you have to replace the entire box, and I think they're like $8,000. So I mean, they're pretty high. But Cummins still uses separate. It has an inlet, goes through the DOC, through the DPF, has a decomposition tube and then has its own separate SCR. So I mean, it's just a different style. They do the same thing.
Yeah, they're all doing, like I said, it's basically one person figured it out, or one company figured it out, and that's who's doing it for everybody.
Yeah,
that's all the same technology at this point. It's just a different software that they're using to do it. I do see the future. Personally, I see the future of construction equipment to being a AC, a lot of AC driven machines right now that are going to be a small gen set running big power to move the hydraulic system. That's what I see. But then again, right now you're using a diesel engine to run all hydrostatic. So which one has less energy, or which one's more energy efficient, right? Electric or hydraulic? Hydraulic has been king for a long, long time.
What's all they new?
Electric has its advantages, I think, because the torque, the pull down, I think, is less on electric, but I don't know. There's a lot of unknown there for me, because I'm not talking about just moving getting something up to speed and moving it for a long period of time, or a certain period of time, like the rest of you guys are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky Tech's looking to get up to a certain speed and stay there for a while at 80,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler's looking at getting a bus from stop to stop and doing that efficiently. And you're looking at getting all sorts of different driving, right? Tone, you're in a very where me, I'm looking at like, hey, I gotta dig this trench with this excavator out in the middle of nowhere, right? How do I get electric on a job site that doesn't have power? How do I do that? Where do I charge this stuff at if it's battery? Okay. Like they're going out, like, I know this is probably a hot topic and I probably shouldn't even bring it up, but let's talk about pipeline. Okay. I know and I'm not trying to do that for any, don't take this for just an example.
Mm-hmm.
This is all of our opinions. That's what's good.
Point A to point B, right? Through 150 different people's backyards or property lines or whatever, right? How many charging stations are there available on that stretch? How could you make something available for that stretch of all the bulldozers, the excavators, all the equipment that has to go out there to move all this pipe and move all this dirt? How are you going to make that accessible? Right now, you run a fuel truck every day down that pipeline and you fill up everything with fuel. How do you do that with electricity? Are you going to have generators sitting there?
Wouldn't you have to have hybrids then? It would almost need to be a hybrid.
No, you don't have to.
You would have, it would be tough to do a hybrid because you're still gonna have to charge that somehow. Or that's why personally I'm saying the genset running an electric power, if that makes sense, for motor over, but I don't know how much advantage is that going to be.
Actually, Nikola has come out. So there's a big race for the first electric truck, and the Tesla truck is already on the road. I think it has like 800,000 miles on it already. And
how much did you pay for that?
What?
When you bought that Tesla truck brand new, how much did you pay for that?
Oh, I wish. I wish I could be on the ground floor. I'd just take some of Elon Musk's stock. Okay.
Like 2 shares?
Hey, 2 shares would be perfectly fine.
We could probably be okay with 2 shares split amongst. I'm cool with a half a share.
Yeah,
If I had a half a share,
that's perfectly fine with me. But there's a company called Nikola. They actually bought the plant where they're making all the glider kits here in Kentucky, out in eastern Kentucky. They bought that plant and they're starting to produce trucks. And they're using liquid and hydrogen. And they run it through. I don't remember exactly how they're doing it, but they're running it through and they're using the hydrogen to charge the batteries. It's a 100% electric truck. There's no internal combustion engine on it. So those trucks, they have a similar range to a diesel truck. They hold about the same amount of fuel, or they hold less fuel. And
so it's a hydrogen fuel cell, right?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so here's the problem that you're going to have with that. So we have hydrogen fuel cells here, and my son's friend actually went and bought a Toyota Mirai, which is a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. And they sold him on this. I mean, it was a used one. They sold him on this. We're going to give you $250 gas card. That's enough gas for 2 years. There's 3 hydrogen fuel cells in our area. He's run out of gas probably 11, 12, 15 times because every time he'll have like this much fuel left and he'll plan it out. I can get to this fueling station. And he goes there. And guess what? That fueling station is offline. So he can't get gas. So he has to park his car and then get picked up and then go back when it's online, get back in the car, get the fuel, get back in the car. Now he's trying to get rid of, now he's stuck because he has his car that he owes way more than it's worth. So I can see that just by knowing what I know about hydrogen fuel cells here in Sacramento. And I don't live in a small city. It's very, very difficult. And can you imagine if you had 3 gas stations you could drive to and you picked one and it was offline? I mean, that's tough right there.
But in Phil's situation, using the pipeline, they could have themselves a fuel truck. No, Tyler, no, bad.
It's not sausage this time.
But it doesn't matter what it is; it looks delicious. Dang!
I know, right? Where's mine?
But they could have their hydrogen fuel truck, and they could just go down the pipeline and fuel them all up, and that's what's going to charge their batteries for the day.
But what if that fuels? But I mean, whatever's happening with hydrogen fuel cells here, I'm just being devil's advocate of what I see right now. If they can't even keep the fueling stations online here, then how are they going to keep the fueling stations online for a heavy truck? Because you're talking about something that can't fail. But we're talking about things that can't fail. You can't have a day or two of no trucks while they get something online, right, Phil? I mean, these things have to keep running.
The difference between the consumer and fleet, or like a private fleet versus government fleet or whatever, is infrastructure.
Maybe.
So we have our own fueling station for CNG. I would assume that they would build their own charging station for electric or hydrogen station for hydrogen.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be public.
Yeah. It's no different than when we got our first DEF truck at the company I worked at. We bought DEF kind of in bulk because it was we bought that right when they came out. Like, it was brand new, final tier 4. What was it, 2012, wasn't it, when they...
Sounds about right.
12 when they...
I think 12
something like that,
where
the heavy trucks went to DEF. I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
Because we had a 2010 that was pre-DEF and a 2012 that had DEF on it. Anyway, I don't know. But we bought 25, 30 gallons because we didn't know how much we were going to go through. And we put 10 gallons in the truck. And that truck used to run 10,000 miles a month. And he would go all over the state, all over every state. He would go, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee. Trying to think of what town that was in Kentucky that we used to go to all the time. But it doesn't matter. But yeah, he'd drive 10,000 miles a month, no matter what, like clockwork. And Then we got a couple more trucks that got DEF, a few dump trucks and different stuff like that. Next thing you know, we bought a tote and a fueling system for it. Like you're saying, we built up our inventory and we did it. So I think if heavy truck went that way, it would be no different than when DEF came into it, where now at your pilots, your Flying J's, your Loves, whatever else, they actually have a diesel pump, and then right next to it, there's a DEF handle. So I think that hydrogen thing, once it gains traction, I think will be better. And but I don't know. Who knows? But,
well, I mean, on the point Tone was making, I remember I was like 5 or 6 years old. There was a dude selling his Cummins because he couldn't find a Cummins pump or a diesel pump around our area, just because it hadn't caught on where I grew up yet. Now you can't go. Half the pumps at the gas station are diesel. So I mean, it'll catch on. It'll move once it goes public. It'll spread pretty fast. But I mean, it'll start out in small fleets, and then it'll branch out from there. Once people realize that it's safe, if it is more efficient, because I mean, it might not be.
The problem with hydrogen is the Hindenburg. Everybody hears the word and they think about that, right?
Oh yeah. I mean,
then there's the other thing as well. Like, so I have to go and do my update class every 2 years for smog, and I do it with the same guy every 2 years. Super smart. He tells us every 2 years, go and get into hybrid, get into hydrogen fuel cell. This is the future. However, it will never be completely the future because of the oil companies and because of politics and money. And it will never go full. It will be a really long time before I ever see it going full hybrid, full hydrogen, full, not gas and diesel. I don't, that going away. I don't think that they'll ever let that go away, even though California said that they're not going to sell them after like 2030 or whatever it was. Ridiculous statement.
2035 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Well, the way
we'll see how that works out.
The way I see it going is they'll start to transition. They'll dip their toe. They might go back and forth a little bit, but those Tesla charging stations, they're going to have them. They're going to have them plugged into a Cat Gen pack. So the oil companies will still make their money.
That's what that's the problem that I see with electric. Yeah. Is that your charging stations are going to have to be built by somebody, and they're going to be built by diesel engines.
Well, what not to mention all the mining they're going to do for all that precious metal for the batteries.
And that's the other thing. What are you going to do in a mining situation, right? You're going to run a generator. They run generators anyway in some of the big mines because they're so remote. So you're bringing in fuel just to run a generator to run your shop. In large scale, I'm talking not here in my state mostly, but you're really kind of on your own when it comes to that electric. You're trying to get it, but you can't.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of struggles that we're going to have with that, but I also don't know if it's such a bad thing. But I think the way of the future for construction is going to go to these what we call hybrid loaders, but they're actually electric loaders and machines where you're running instead of hydraulic load on it where it's variable, you're taking and running a gen set which is consistent. And if you can consistently load that engine at 2250 RPMs, you can consistently control your emissions and your fuel economy very well. And you can fine tune that like crazy and then let the variation become the load you're putting on it externally with electric. Now, I get it. When you're charging more or using more power, it's going to pull down on that engine more. You're going to change some stuff. It's not guaranteed or easy. But at the same time, you're trying to control it here instead of and that's why they went hydrostatic, was to try to, your high stat pumps, you only you back off your pump when you don't need as much flow. You bring it in. It's going to be the same, and that's where hydraulic and electrical. I said it on a live stream of mine at one time of you can equate a lot of electric and hydraulic components together. A diode is a check valve. A control valve is a rheostat. You're talking about very similar things. So which one is more efficient for emissions? I don't know the answer to that. And somebody way smarter than me is going to have to be let us know, and we'll find out.
In the near future, I think they've gotten emissions where they can. I don't think we can make a semi produce less emissions. They're virtually producing nothing right now. They're going to start going after fuel mileage. I think that's our next hurdle, because trucks right now are getting 7, 8, 9 miles to the gallon. I think they're going to try and push that to 10 and 12.
Which is almost twice of what they used to get.
That's twice what they were getting 10 years ago.
10 years ago, if you were getting 4 miles to the gallon, you were doing good in a big truck, heavy application.
And part of that is because the aftertreatment system is filtering it so well, they can turn up the engines, give them more horsepower. So now they're not struggling as much. So they're not burning.
Funny that you mentioned that.
Say something.
I like
Tyler.
The look in Tone's face right now is like, hey, I got you now.
Tone
this was something really cool. This is something that was really cool. So I was talking to Tyler about, I had a Mercedes Sprinter that was just a cluster of things. Started out with a bad transmission, then oil leaks, and anyways, then an exhaust problem. And Mercedes...
Tranny, exhaust problem. I don't want to
know. So I had this Mercedes, and it had an exhaust problem. And so Tyler sent me this podcast of this guy, and I listened to the whole thing while I was putting up Christmas lights. And in that podcast, the guy, I don't remember the guy's name, but he said something really interesting. He said there are hospitals that are using diesel engines for their generators that have after-treatment systems on there, that they've fine-tuned it so well that after-treatment system actually pumps air back into the hospital because it comes out cleaner than the air that goes into it. It was very interesting to listen to this guy talk about after treatment and how you can fine tune the diesel engine and the after treatment to come out so darn clean. It's funny when we talk about that, because one of the things that we started off this topic with was blowing coal.
He hasn't put out content in a while.
He hasn't. I don't know what the deal is with that, but
I thought about contacting that guy too. Be like, yo,
it was really cool. We started out the topic about rolling coal. And then now back into, you bring it full circle, and you could still get a lot of power and everything else and run it so clean that you can breathe it. It's really hard to imagine that.
Well, that's what I don't understand, though. The part I don't understand is they say that, but yet why are they always trying to improve emissions if it's gotten to the point where humans could breathe it like that?
Because it's like gasoline, right? I'll tell you why. You go all the way back. Every time you start to make a step, you realize, wait, hang on. So like with gasoline, when I first started doing emissions, CO2 was the number, right? You wanted 14% CO2. We tested for hydrocarbons. We tested for carbon monoxide. We tested for NOx, tested oxygen, and CO2. Those were the 5 gases that would pop up. And the number that you shot for was CO2. You wanted your CO2 at 14%. 14.5%. And now to get that, your CO has to be perfect. Your hydrocarbons have to be perfect. Your oxygen has to be perfect. You add too much oxygen, it messes everything up. Well, then, so you think you have that all dialed in, and then they discover that CO2 is actually not as good as they thought it was. Now they're trying to lower the CO2. By lowering the CO2, you raise the NOx, you raise the HCs, you raise the CO. And so I think that this is, if you think about where we are right now, we are a lot better than we were in the year 2000, emissions-wise. this was back when they didn't even know that semis were putting out the emissions that they were, because it was diesel. We didn't know diesel was putting out emissions like the gas was. It's actually putting out worse. So this has all been like stepping stones as to what they're saying and what they're finding. And, when they start to go here and they're like, oh yeah, we made progress. Oh crap, because science also evolves, and, everything else evolves. And, they don't know what they knew, 25 years ago. And so I think that as they do it, they start to realize, oh, wait, this is actually creating a problem now. It's not so good. And now we have to change it here. And so, I think that plays a big role in it. Not the answer, but it definitely plays a role in it.
I love the old fact that a lot of the old Fords had what they called the smog pump, where they were like, oh yeah, California, we'll meet your emissions. We'll just pump some fresh air into our exhaust. Take that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Like
so you
remember those on the 80s Fords?
Yeah, heck
they had
yeah.
those pumps, right? And that was just pumping fresh air in your exhaust to pass emissions. Like, so we've evolved where it's not like, and maybe that's where the whole Volkswagen thing was like, hey, they did this back in the day and they got away with it. Maybe we can do similar type of shit. But I'm going to stop busting their chops here shortly, because they did pay for that, and they paid for it dearly, I'm sure.
Oh yes, they did.
Shoot, we have a semi-professional, not even semi-professional. We have a football team here. Well, I don't even know if I want to call them the Detroit Lions. You ever hear of them?
Yeah. One of the guys I work with.
They used to play over in Pontiac, and that whole car lot was full of Volkswagens for a long time before they built Ford Field. I don't know. Are they even a professional football team or considered one anymore?
I've never heard of them.
I don't know. I think they get draft picks, but I'm not really sure.
Oh, they always get draft picks. Top ones. Like, they are the first ones to get picks, but nothing ever comes of it.
Hey, if you want to talk about the Detroit Lions, I will put you on the phone with my coworker. He will talk all day about the Detroit Lions.
I'm good. There's three Detroit Lions that I'm a fan of, that were back in that were career fans of. Now, you had Barry Sanders, who was all-time great and could have probably had 2 handfuls of Super Bowl rings had he played anywhere else.
Hey, real quick, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, we might get cut off. We just had a power outage here, so internet's going to go out in a second now, so just kind of anticipate that.
Okay. But yeah, anyway, we've had the Barry Sanders, Kelvin Johnson, and I would put Adamakan Suh up there as 3 of my favorite Detroit Lions ever, all time.
Isn't Suh the one who got all those fines for?
He was a horrible person. He was a horrible person. It's kind of like the Detroit Red Wings hockey team. My 2 favorite players of all time was Bob Probert and Joey Kosar. All they did was fight.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that's another thing. That's just one of
those.
So things.
I wanted to tell you guys something that's really, really cool. So Tyler was talking about buses and going from diesel to natural gas. And I just wanted to tell you something really cool. My father-in-law, he was the director of operations for RT Rapid Transit in Sacramento back when we had diesel buses. And he was one of the pioneers for bringing diesel buses and changing to natural gas. And so he tells me all these stories about all of the hurdles that they faced with going to natural gas, and all the different transmission companies meeting with them and trying to find out the best transmissions that worked with them, and the cooling systems, and what it took to move buses from a diesel to natural gas. Is very, very interesting to hear.
That's awesome.
All of this, it's really cool to hear about all these things that they would fly him out, and he would go out to Palm Springs, and he would go out to the desert, and there would be just a few people on a bus, and they would go drive this bus and they would go drive this bus through the desert for days to see how the cooling system did and how the transmissions did and all these different kinds of tests that they did. to get to where they fine tuned it, where they said, yes, we're going to go with this transmission and this cooling system, and the cooling systems, they would do it, and they would say, oh, the water pump's not putting on enough, the radiator doesn't have a big enough capacity, so they would have to just keep changing it and fine tuning it, and then go back and try it again and try it again. It was really cool to hear that difference, hear that about the transition to go from that. And I think that evolves into what we're talking about now. Is we talk about where we're going to go, and they're going to come out with a model of hybrid and a model of this and a model of that, and they're going to run it for a while, and they're going to realize that, oh crap, okay, well, this is a problem, and they're going to have to change it and change it and change it. It's just going to be
can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in transit industry, there's a lot of prototype usage. So back in like the 90s, they were running hydrogen engines before everybody else, and it didn't do well because they hadn't perfected everything yet. So they got away with it. Now, modern technology, they're bringing it back. So right now, we're at a path between going right to electric or going left to hydrogen. And we don't know where we're going, but we have that 2030 deadline of where we're going to be. So right now,
I guarantee you're going to try both.
Oh yeah, no doubt we're going to try both. But the big
you're going to learn both systems, Ty.
The big thing is infrastructure, though. They just built our facility last year, so it's a brand new facility and it's not set up for electric charging systems. So to bring in and change the whole infrastructure is basically the big decision makers. Like, where are we going to go?
And that's a lot of money that people don't really consider when they're talking about that, is how much money, we spend on tools to work on other stuff, like now, are your natural gas engines, are they Cummins natural gas?
They're all Cummins, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And in the early stages of that, when they were doing the prototypes, they had the Detroit Series 50s that they converted into natural gas. Gotcha.
Yeah, because Cummins is pushing natural gas like crazy right now. Mm-hmm. They're doing a lot of genset work too. And they were talking, I was down there in Seymour, and they were talking about how natural gas is more reliable than diesel as far as when a catastrophe hits, a hurricane, whatever. You can, if the road infrastructure breaks down, natural gas can still be supplied. Mm-hmm. If there's a flood, natural gas flows still. Mm-hmm. Diesel, you're not going to get a fuel truck to a relief center that doesn't have power for a month, where natural gas you can run for a month and it's just rerouting valves and making it work.
Starts very well in cold weather too.
Yeah, and speaking of starting cold weather, like I was talking to Kentucky Tech. This is something that I was kind of chuckling about after our conversation, because I look at Caterpillar, the old D8 cat, right? Big old nasty pig of a dozer. Like, it's just a pig. They used to they had a pony motor, a little gas engine that was used to fire that thing up, wind her up, and engage a clutch to turn over the diesel to actually get it to start with a pony motor, right? I came in where it was like, oh my gosh, there's a pony. I watched a guy rebuild a pony motor in like 99, right, for an old one. And he's like, yeah, we used to work on these things all the time. You think you're a diesel tech and you're over here working on a gas engine, a little pony motor. And like, that's something that I have not seen since, right? Like, particularly to work on. In the past 20 years, I have never worked on a pony motor, right? Now, the injection pump, I feel like my kids are going to look at that and be like, oh my gosh, look at that. That's got an injection pump on it. What is that?
You have to time the fuel pump?
You have to, what is that? I don't even know. What are these lines that are, oh my gosh, you're going to crack one of them lines loose? You know how much pressure's on that? Yeah, about 2,500, man. Calm down. It'll be okay. Yeah. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the progression of diesel in my world has been like, oh my gosh, astounding, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm looking at the future, like we're all talking here, and what are they going to have? They're going to just be plugging that baby into the wall or into a, like, where are you going to plug them in on job sites? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
See, the biggest thing for us too is the fleet I worked at before. We also had about 25 electric buses, and the biggest issue we ran into was the grid couldn't handle it, charging all the buses at the same time. So they had to be done in sections of like 3 or 4 at a time, and we could only do that after 9 o'clock at night. Otherwise, we'd be issued a fine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still an issue.
Oh,
And
The grid grid needs to be able to handle.
But here's the other question I have. How do you get your power, Tyler?
As far as electricity?
Yeah. How are we getting
From the
our
wall.
power? Do you know what I'm saying?
from the plug, Phil.
But you know what I'm saying, though?
You know?
As far as
Yeah.
like a power plant you're talking about?
Yeah. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, how are you getting it? Is it coal? Is it
It's
nuclear?
nuclear
Is
in
it
California.
water? You know what I mean?
Most of California's power is nuclear, I think.
Gotcha. Well, you know what I'm saying, though. I'm not trying to be a
Yeah.
jerk to you in particular by any means, but that's the thing that people aren't. The people that are in charge of this stuff.
Uh-huh.
I think they literally think of what we just said. Where do you get your power from? The wall.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying earlier. It was like
yeah, you shouldn't farm and raise animals for meat. Go to the grocery store like everybody else and buy them. That's more humane.
It's kind of
Buy
like
your
how I
meat
was
from the
saying.
grocery store.
Yeah.
The mining for lithium. The mines for lithium are
Phil.
crazy. Like
Your meat has a face. Mine, it comes wrapped in cellophane. You know.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I shipped it to the slaughterhouse for you to see it in cellophane later.
Yeah.
But anyway, it really is the chicken or the egg. What comes first, right? But go ahead on your mining, Tyler.
Yeah, it's mining. They're using diesel to mine lithium. Not to mention the hole in the earth that they're creating to mine the shit. You know, ultimately, what are they helping out environmentally when it comes to electricity?
Or look at all these windmills that run 20% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really, like, I have a problem with I think too much sometimes, and my wife doesn't ever think at all. So I don't know what. Anyway, it's like that 50-50 rule we were talking about earlier. I don't know. Sometimes I think too much and sometimes I don't think at all. But the windmills, right? The windmill on the power grid, if it was that a real ramp up for electric vehicles of how to get good renewable energy. The other thing is renewable energy, biodiesel and biofuel, ethanol. Ethanol is making some great things happen in the gas industry, I think, as far as fuel consumption, helping with the oil that we're not using. Mm-hmm. It comes from corn. Now, when you grow corn, this is the thing right here that kind of gets me kind of irritated, right? Is back in the day,
I know where you're going with this.
Back in the day, they used to give carbon credits, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. And they say, if you do this, you get this or whatever, however it works. It was a trade-off deal, right? So there's a farmer over here that farms 1,000 acres of corn, right? Or 1,000 acres. Yeah, we'll go 1,000 acres of corn at 200 bushel an acre. That's 200,000 bushels of corn, right? Now the ethanol plant in our area uses 50,000 bushel a day for ethanol. Out of that, they get vegetable oil as a byproduct of that. So now they're literally selling vegetable oil to Land O'Lakes is who's buying it up here in Michigan. I know that. The oil is being sold off that corn. The distiller's grain is being used to feed cattle at a cheaper price. So after they get done distilling the ethanol and making it, they're making corn liquor. is what they're really doing. And then they inject it with a certain amount of gasoline to make it undrinkable. That way, therefore, it's fuel at that point, not corn liquor. But so now your byproducts are distiller's grain for cattle to eat or pigs, whatever. It's a high protein mix. You have oil, and now you have a fuel source, right? So there's 3 big positives of ethanol. The other thing is that 1,000 acres of corn. Do you know how much oxygen that 1,000 acres produces into the atmosphere?
Mm-hmm.
A lot. We'll just put it that way. More than trees in certain instances, right?
Yeah.
You could plant 100 trees or 100 acres of corn. I think the corn will outproduce that, and then the next year you plant it again. But so that farmer now is going to be told that he can't. Now he plants another 1,000 acres of soybeans. That soybean goes to a plant to make biodiesel out of soybeans that he plants. So now he's burning the fuel in his tractors to plant the crop to get the fuel back. You know what I'm saying? Like it's literally a perfect cycle of life, right? So now he's producing CO2 out that his corn needs and his soybeans need to grow. You know what I mean? So if we get rid of, it's going to be it's tough, right, to figure all that out. But I think people aren't realizing the full cycle of the mining for the stuff and what goes into it. And bio is not bad. It burns hotter than diesel fuel. There's some really good applications for ethanol and biodiesel that I think are good, reliable sources of renewable energy that people are kind of discounting right now.
That's where
in the discussion.
I hate to bring up the word, but politics has a lot to do with it. And what they tell the people is different from what reality is. And how it affects one industry is going to affect the other if you change things.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
also
the tough part.
Another thing that goes along with what you were saying is we're never going to be able to completely do away with everything. Everything will still have to be there because, okay, so the buses, you can't charge that many buses at one time. So therefore you can't be all electric. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't go full hydrogen fuel cell because you can only mine so much and it's going to run out eventually. You're going to have, and you can't do all of this without gasoline and diesel engines to get from point A to point B and to produce the machines to mine and do all of the other things that it takes to keep all these things going with the politics and everything all involved. That's why I don't think that we'll ever be able to go full hybrid, full electric. Diesel and gas will always still be there to some capacity. And unfortunately, like Tyler said earlier, no matter how clean we are, they're always going to want it cleaner. They're always going to want it better. They're always going to want more and more and more. And then us as technicians, we're just going to be battling and fighting and then doing the things that the people don't see, right? We work on cars and trucks. We go to work all day long, and then we have to spend time after work training, reading, watching videos, trying to understand, getting our certifications. Now there's a new thing. Now we have to get a certification for this, going as for me, if I don't mess with natural gas, but if I started to, there's another certification for natural gas that I would have to get along with my gas and diesel ones, so it's just this cycle of
and how many things are you able to actually comprehend and become? I forget who it was who was talking the other day about being specialized or
Jude, JC. There was somebody else that was talking about MLH.
But like being specialized or generalized type of deal, and I want to be specialized in everything I can to a certain extent. But at the same time, man, how much clutter are you going to have in your head going from diesel to natural gas to hydrogen I mean, I guess we'll find out because that guy right up there is going to have it all stuffed in his head before it's all said and done, because the busing industry is really going to take that hit. And I think the other place we got to think of, the garbage trucks and the delivery trucks, the Amazon Prime vans, them sprinters. I guarantee they're going to have big changes coming someday, because those sprinters, and I don't know what the heck the real name
Ford
of them
Transits. They started doing Ford Transits too.
There you
Gasoline
go.
Ford
like
Transit.
that, but you know what I'm saying? Like those vehicles that are stop and go constantly, I think are going to be the candidates for figuring out how many batteries they can stuff in them dang things. And those sprinter vans, I don't know, whatever I call them, whatever. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. The delivery vans, the bread trucks, the stuff that's generally lighter loads is what I guess I'm getting at, is going to be targeted first, I think. But then the garbage industry, how many stop and goes do they take? You know, they've already tried to do like back in the day, I know they had like this hydraulic accumulator system where they would take off and let all the hydraulic pressure release, and then all of a sudden, as they were trying to stop, it would use the hydraulics. It would basically pump full this accumulator full of pressure, so the next time they took off, they'd release that pressure, and it would be like a spring type of deal. But it's all hydraulic accumulator, right?
Kind of
Like a hydro
reverse
boost.
retarder, like a reverse retarder, pretty much.
Reverse retarder.
So
I think that sums up. Should that be the title of this? The reverse retarder talk? But no, that's exactly what they were doing, is on the drive line. They were putting it where it was like an engine brake or a retarder, and it would slow everything down and build that pressure from one stop to the next. And when they'd go to take off, it would use that pressure to propel them to the next stop, and then it would take and go. So I don't know if that's going to be a new thing. You know, we're talking about theories outside the box here.
Let me see if I could share my screen here for a second, see if it works. I've never actually done this, but we'll try.
It's kind of weird to do, but it's not that bad. As
Oh.
long as you don't break the internet like I did the other night.
I mean, there's so many. There we go.
Okay, so right now we're moving into this, which is basically e-axles.
Okay.
So
Pretty cool.
crap.
See, that's a lot different than what they're trying to do with trucks. Trucks, they're putting one motor per hub.
Okay.
And that's what they did with construction equipment, is they're putting wheel motors on the wheel loaders. It's 4 wheel motors, and they're all electric.
And this is basically a plug and play. It just replaces the axle, apparently with no modification to the vehicle. So your Meritor brake setup's pretty much exactly the same. You don't have to change parts or anything like that, but you're changing the axle assembly.
That's kind of crazy.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Look at how, oh man, that was creepy. How far down that screen just went, like, for
staring into the abyss.
Yeah, I'm like,
I had to do it quick so you didn't see my browsing history. So,
oh yeah,
yeah.
I don't want to see that. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't uncommon when you were looking up rear ends. Sorry, Ty. I do apologize for that. Was a low blow, wasn't it? I mean, it was.
You have no idea. You have no idea what the Text Talking Shop chat room looks like on a daily basis.
Oh,
I could only imagine. I do like this platform, though. This is an awesome thing. I was giving Kentucky Tech some crap because I don't feel like what'd you call me, an honorary guest or a special guest, celebrity guest? Some bull word, but I am truly honored to actually be able to talk with you guys about this because it's cool. I think this is cool. I mean, maybe that just proves how big of a dork I am, but I think this is a cool concept, and you guys are onto something big. I think this is a large scale thing that is going to go. I think it's underappreciated right now, but someday it will be appreciated greatly by a lot of people. You know, kind of making history here. Talking about this, you know, we're at a pivotal time in the diesel and gas world and emissions, and we're willing to talk about it publicly. There's not a lot of people out there that you know, want to take a stance one way or another, unless it's some, you know, post on Facebook or some some baloney where they just want to tear it down, and we're not here to tear it down. We're here to actually talk about it, which is cool.
Well, it's sort of like you said earlier. We might not like it, but it's here, and it's gonna be here, and it's gonna evolve.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Either at the end of the day, the train or not. At the end of the day, let's be honest with ourselves. This is a great place to make money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. With the maintenance that's involved with emissions, if it wasn't for emissions, how slow would you be? Let's think about that for a minute.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I'd say 70% of your day is spent probably on emissions-related problems. Because
I had
onboard diagnostics.
So the shop I work at, we have 200 units. We have 5 technicians. It's 40 units per tech. I had a trainer tell me that 20 years ago, 200 units would have been 3 techs. So that's 2 extra jobs right there, just from the evolution of the industry. Just because you still got to do all the basics. You still got to change tires and brakes.
But here's the other question. How many in-frames do we see a year compared to that guy that was wrenched in the 80s?
Well,
I would love to. I would love to.
You know, those guys that were working in the 80s were doing valve jobs and heads and pistons and liners and actually doing base component engine work that we don't get to touch anymore because they've done such a great job perfecting how long that engine will last.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're really just emissions technicians. When you look at it, we're maintenance and emissions technicians.
Mm-hmm.
We don't work on base components that often. Can we? Are we capable?
And when we do, it's because the emission system failed and caused that other system, you know, the coolant went, you know, in the engine, or you know what I mean, from this and that. And, you know, that's the repairs we're doing are the emission system fail and cause big problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I find it to be very interesting that we're getting like that.
Look at oil change intervals, how much they've changed.
Oh. Man, I've seen trucks with 75,000 mile oil change intervals. They're also getting sleeves and liners, but 75,000 miles.
That's crazy. It used to be on construction equipment, you'd do 250 hours. You'd be doing the oil change. 500 hours, you'd be doing a fuel filter. Then they went to 500-hour oil changes every 500 hours. Mm-hmm. Now, generally speaking, a year on a piece of construction equipment is 2,000 hours. Generally speaking, that's if you're using it year-round, that's what you'll get. The average, I think, is like 1,000 or 1,200 hours a year is what people put on their stuff overall.
I mean, whenever I worked at the rock quarry, we were doing engine oil samples at 250 hours, oil changes at 500. I think at 1,000, we might have been doing like hydraulics and transmission services, and then diff and planetaries at 1,500.
Yeah, they're going. Like John Deere came out with a zinc-free oil, hydraulic oil, and they say that's supposed to be good for 4,000 hours. The oil.
Wow.
Don't trust it.
That's crazy.
But if you add, and it's super expensive. It's actually Hitachi and Deere together,
Yeah.
whatever. But it's super expensive. But if you put over 10% of regular hydraulic fluid in it, it cuts your interval to 2,000 hours again.
Yeah. Well, you know that super high moly gold grease from Caterpillar?
Never used it.
Well, Caterpillar has their own formula. It's gold. It's super sticky, and once you get it on you, it's everywhere. Everywhere. It's worse than anti-thief. But a loader with an auto loop system on it will still wear out the pins. I don't care what kind of, or the pivot pins. I don't care what kind of oil they got. I don't care how long it says it'll run. Stuff's still going to wear out.
Yeah, it's all about pressure at that point, you know. Yep. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it as far as emissions goes. I think we all need to embrace it to a certain extent and learn it. If nothing else, you don't have to like it. You just have to learn it and plan on making your wages off of what technology is going to give you, because, you know, like you said, tire repair and brakes are there to stay. There ain't no difference in them. They're going to be, I mean, they went to disc brakes on trucks.
Sorta. They're still kind of taboo. They're major upgrade.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, as far as that goes, you're still going to wear out brakes. You're still stopping it. But like Tone was saying, if they do have some sort of generation power, like Tone was saying, and Tyler showing that rear axle, I would have to say that you may have something going on there where your brakes may get a little more longevity. And who knows?
Most definitely.
We may be calling ourselves electricians and tire changers by the time this is all said and done.
Yeah.
You know?
One diagnostic guy, one battery changer, and one tire changer.
Sign me up for the batteries.
I don't, as long as we got an overhead.
Yeah, that's the other thing though, is the price. I know you guys work for companies, and I'm kind of newly self-employed, and the price of parts is scary. Scary going out there on a limb for a customer.
Yeah.
You know, I know your shops are all probably Tone shop more than the Kentucky Teck or Tyler's, you know, as far as the overhead, because you guys are the end result customer of your fleets, right? Because you guys are in fleets. So you guys buying the parts isn't as scary because you're not going to get paid for them anyway. Your company's not going to get paid for them anyway. They pay for them. Where I'm trying to get paid for the parts as well. And that's going to be scary going into this. Battery, electric emissions stuff is crazy money. We've been throwing numbers out there that is crazy. You know, $10,000-$13,000. Could you? I'm just looking at my own bank account, going, I'm supposed to spend $13,000 for this guy to hope I get paid for it. Oh boy,
yeah. And that's the thing, is if you get one or two people that can't afford it, you know, that, oh shit, I something happened and I can't afford it right now. You know, like, well, we get that, you know, people don't pick up their cars, but fortunately, you know, it's a bigger company. They have, you know, the planned for that. But I mean, you know, but see, we also have in place where if a job requires X amount of repairs, that a lot of times they'll want a deposit up front, because if the vehicle is not worth the money in the end, then you're stuck with the $8,000 bill on a car that's worth $3,000.
Yeah.
So we will ask for deposits.
Talk to customers about this Kubota engine that I ordered. You know, that was a conversation I had with the customer. Like, hey man, I can't spend the money to order you an engine that I'm not going to be able to get for a month or two or whatever. You know, they quoted me 4 to 6 weeks of lead time, and man, I don't have that money to sit out there.
Oh no,
you can't do it. So
Is it unheard of for in your industry, like the way that you work, to let's say you come to the customer and you're like, hey, this thing needs a $6,000 part. And is it unheard of for you to, I don't know that industry, but is it unheard of to say like, hey, I need to order this part to move forward? I mean, I guess it's not professional, right?
As far as a dealership, yes. That's unheard of to say that as a dealership to a certain extent.
Right.
Because, well, they have their basically at the construction equipment dealerships, you can get a line of credit at that dealership where the credit company gives you, a couple $1,000,000 worth of credit. And then as long as that repairs under there and you got your thing, it's pretty much guaranteed money. So it's not like, but you got to finish the repair to get paid. So even the dealerships have an issue with, you start talking about a machine that needs an engine, right? So there's $35,000-$40,000 worth of engine parts, maybe more. And then you're talking about a technician that's going to have 40 hours into it at 100, and that's $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 there. So now you're at 40, 50 grand out there. And now when it's completed, you're like, hey, yeah. And the customer's like, well, what about that leak on that cylinder? Okay, yeah, we got to do that too. What about this? What about that? You do your upsells of parts needed. Next thing you know, you're at 60, 70 grand on a machine that's worth 50 grand. But to replace that machine, it's 200 grand.
Right.
Or more.
But for you, though, is it abnormal for you in the independent world? Because you're kind of independent now.
I don't know if it's abnormal. Yeah. People have been pretty accepting to it. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
Well, that's good.
Bigger repairs. There's other customers that I have that I guess I've just told them what parts I need and they provide them.
Well, that's good.
And then there's no deal with the sales tax and all that stuff is all taken care of. There's no markup on their parts. There's no, which I don't even know how to do that yet, or I don't even know how to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know what markup is. I know what I need to do that. But at the same time, I mean, we're talking about some serious parts here. And it's like, if it's your money, I guess the way I've done it is if it's their money going into the parts, there's no real markup that I need to put on that.
And how do you feel about that as far as the part quality? Like if somebody's giving you a part that you feel is not quality and you're going to do the work on it, how does that affect your warranty or whatever, your quality of work?
That's another discussion too, where the companies that I've been getting the parts, that have been getting the parts for me, they don't really get the parts for me. I call up, I order the parts, and then it's on their account.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
Oh, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Like for you, I'm working for Tyler, and I'm like, and he's like, oh yeah, I got an account at this dealership. I call it dealership. Hey, I need these parts, and it's for Tyler's construction company. Okay, order them, get them coming, click, and then they show up. So
I see.
It's not like, yeah, go find me a used O-ring out of your parts bin and type of deal. It's all legitimate parts. So,
okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's working out. So, but it is scary to think about all the money that we're going to spend on parts that are kind of taboo, like we've said too. There's a lot of unknowns to sensors and different stuff.
Yeah,
it's scary.
I mean, I used to think I wanted to.
Is that everybody's internet cutting out, or just mine?
Just yours.
Okay. I used to think I wanted to own my own shop, and then I started doing like the heavy line / diagnostic stuff. And there's several weeks where I've racked up $10,000-$12,000, and I'm like, got to deal with people, and I got to spend $12,000 in parts. Not happening. Not happy.
Yeah, I feel like I would age like 10 years within a month doing that shit.
Yeah, you're like 19, aren't you?
So 18.
18. Yeah, Tyler's 18. Just look at him. He looks 50.
He's working on his 5th year of high school, 7th year of high school, 7th year senior. I'm just picking on you. I'm sorry, Tyler. I can't.
It's all good.
I mean, usually they redshirt people as a freshman, not as a senior. I'm sorry. I am a jerk.
It's all right. I do the same thing to Davian. It's Dizini. Yeah. I kind of give him a hard time all the time, so it's kind of
That's good. You got to give and take. It's give-take relationship,
Oh, yeah.
We need to do a live stream with you and Davian arguing over tacos.
Yeah. that Texas shit don't fly with me, man.
Where do you get the best street taco?
Right here, where I live, California.
Sorry. Here in Michigan, I've had some of the best tacos ever.
Have you had some here?
No.
Oh, you can't say that then.
Oh, I can say that.
No.
I can say that I've had some of the best tacos and tamales ever. My buddy Modesto and Miguel have hooked me up, and yeah, not gonna lie.
You have a buddy named Modesto?
Modesto, yeah.
That's the name of a city here in California.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Modesto is his sister makes tamales every so often, and I buy them by the bag.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. You want to see me sit down and eat 30 tamales in a sitting?
You better be careful. This will turn into a contest.
Is that the
and
next
I'll be
contest?
the only one to make a video.
Kentucky Tech will be like, where can I find some homemade tamales? Oh. Good stuff, bro. Good stuff.
Well,
what else we got on our list? What do you got on your magic list? Have you been scratching stuff off or adding stuff?
Sorta.
What do we got? We got through like 2 things or what?
Well, we covered it, but I have ADHD, so I fiddle with stuff and I drop my marker. So yeah, so that happens.
Are you sure that's what you did?
Yeah, but no. So
I don't think he appreciated that, Ty.
Yeah.
I don't think he appreciated that. I think he
squat and cough, Kentucky. Squat and cough.
I think the shill tutu over there is getting. Because he is officially a shill. See that Capri hat?
Yeah.
He got that for free.
Yeah.
From Capri, even though it was part of the promo, he's still a shill.
Yeah. That's why I'm gonna be the shill wrench. The way everybody will send me wrenches, and then I'm gonna become the shill impact. That way everybody will send me impacts.
What else do you want?
I don't know. I'll be the shill 84-inch epic if I want to.
I want to be the shill taco. That way people send me tacos.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm not. Tyler's like, sign me up.
So now we're talking.
I don't know. It takes a lot of tacos to pay for an 84-inch epic.
No,
that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna change my name to the the Shill 84-inch neon green epic.
Is that what you're you're gonna get next?
I don't know. I probably got 3 or 4 years before I actually buy like my real big box.
Gotcha.
But
buy your real big box.
Yeah.
His cart's the size of a box.
It had. Did I ever send you the picture of my box next to a U.S. General box? I mean,
I'm sorry. I just sorry.
I
want to see
you dirty. I swear.
All right. Anyway, but no, I have not seen that.
Okay, I'll send it to you later. But the only thing I have left on my list is shouting out Tone and Jude's live streams. So, Tone, when's your live stream?
I do my live stream Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, California time.
Yeah, Cali
And
time.
you just try to go hour and a half. It's after work. So just try to talk about the week, talk about, whatever.
6. What? How much different is it? Is it 5
So
hours?
That's
9:30 your
for
time.
you.
That's
Yeah, 9:30
9:30
your
for
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're always going on late.
And then Jude has a live stream every night, right? Isn't his every night just whatever?
Yeah. Just hit the notification bell to get on Jude's live streams.
Yeah,
He'll wake up and it'll be like 6 hours streamed 45 minutes ago. Like,
yeah, like, dude, that's exactly what happened this morning. I woke up and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
5 hours. Yeah.
I was on there for 2 hours and I was like, I gotta go to bed.
I guess I have to go back. I don't even know if I can watch that long of a live stream, Like, that's tough.
My live streams aren't 5 hours. Sorry.
I quit doing long ones. I tried to quit doing long ones. I try to keep it to a couple hours because it's like,
yeah,
you get done. It's great conversation. Like, this is awesome. And I think this is a cool concept because there isn't a whole lot of comments to clutter up the conversation as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's tough to follow comments. I mean, you're figuring that out yourself too, Tone, is like, you try to get to everybody and address everything. And it's like, dude, you get so far behind, then people bust your chops about being far behind. And you're like, God, I'm just trying. Because I was always the type of guy that whenever I was in a live stream with other people doing it, they would like pass by my comments sometimes. And I was like, man, what? I really was trying to make a good, valid point to like something that was good to talk about. What's up, buddy?
This little crack here.
Okay.
No, don't touch it.
Okay. Are you okay?
Touch it. I put a cold.
Okay, hold on.
He put a cold thing.
It's the little wrench.
That's the little wrench.
I think what is Jude's live stream is what Thursday?
Thursday, I think it's 6:30 Cali time.
Yeah, his official one is Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he likes to do a live stream after Phil's on Saturday.
After Phil's, after mine, on Mondays, on Tuesdays.
Consider it like the after party.
Yeah, after party for sure.
Yeah.
I'm down with it. Whatever. It's all good. The little man just had a little something on his foot. He stubbed his foot or something and had to choke me.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, Jude's live stream is basically where once you've went to the party and then you go just to get drunk. That's sort of what a lot of Jude's live streams turn into. Everybody's taking shots.
Mine's not ideal. It's on a Wednesday night. It's kind of hard to get, and then sometimes like people will start tuning in when I'm getting off because, I got to tend to the kids and, everything else because it is a work night. So it's just not the ideal time to go live, but I tried doing it on Fridays and it just coincides with other live streams. And so, yeah, so the Wednesday is my weekly thing. So
I like the Wednesday because Monday there's not really much going on. Tuesday there's not much. Wednesday there's not much. Then it kind of starts to roll in on Thursday, Friday, and then Saturdays and Sundays are crazy.
I was thinking about trying to post more videos earlier in the week, but I'm doing the Thursday thing with videos, trying to stay more consistent. But I don't know. What do you think? When's a slow time for what you're watching?
See, for me, my time is the best time to post videos is like 7 to 9 or 10-ish my time in the morning. So I usually upload them the night before just because it's easier to upload them at home. I finish editing them, I hit upload, and then in the morning, that's when at 7 I'll post on Instagram and that I put out a video. But I upload it the night before just because it's easier for me. So I used to do it in the morning, but I had times where like the video would take forever. And so if I do it at night, I mean, I've went to bed sometimes. I do my editing and I add my thumbnail and all that, and then it just goes live. It goes while I'm sleeping. Sometimes if it takes too long. So in the morning, I'm sitting there waiting for it to upload before I send out anything. And I've had where it was like 11 o'clock before it finished. And so that's what I do personally. It's been working for me. So,
Yeah.
But okay, if you guys want to hang around for a second, we'll cut the recording, bullshit a little bit if you guys want to. That's cool, with y'all.
Sounds cool to me.
So,
I guess we'll do our outro.
So if anybody's still watching, all our 12 viewers, you know, we appreciate you guys making it to this point in the video.
This is gonna get like 30,000 views, man.
Because we had a celebrity guest.
Celebrity guest.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's because
we're gonna tag like Toolbox Tour and Snap-on Epic and what's popular right now?
The Heavy Wrench.
We're gonna tag Teckton, Teckton angle wrenches,
Capri shills.
Yeah, Capri shill.
Wearing a Snap-on shirt.
Yeah. Hey, I had a Snap-on hat on earlier. But we appreciate everybody watching. We'll see y'all in the next one.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me, though.
Yeah,
it was.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
So
it was fun.
Yep.
All right.
I guess that's it.
All right, let me go take a leak. I'll be right back.